Hello, beautiful you. Thanks so much for tuning in. Woo! I finally was able to quit something in my life that was sabotaging my life for decades. But it wasn't the actual thing I gave up that made me aware of this huge thing that was truly sabotaging my life. And it had to do with how I was making choices in my reality. So today we're going deep so we can rise high. I'm Rebecca ABraxas. Thanks so much for tuning in. And together we are remembering our greatness. So, have you ever felt like you feel stuck? Have you ever felt like you were living something out over and over again, and you just kind of knew that maybe you shouldn't be living this way, or maybe you should make a change, because if you've just felt like if you made a change, that would change everything in your life for the better, yet you kept doing it anyway? Oh, I was doing this for so long with alcohol. Now, I never was a huge drinker. I've always been a seeker and personal growth and human potential person. I've always, since can remember, being 8 years old, asking the next question, asking questions of the universe, talking to my dad about philosophy. But my whole world got just switched around when my parents got divorced at 12, and at 14 I found out my father was an alcoholic. This just exploded my brain. I had no idea that my father was an alcoholic, and that shifted a lot in my reality. And then at 14, 15, I started to drink alcohol myself, just in a way as teens do, to socialize and to party and stuff like that. But when I did it, it wasn't like it was super fun. There was a fun aspect to it, but underneath, my soul was screaming at me, and I could feel it. I could feel my soul being like, "What are you doing? This is not in alignment with your path." Even at 14 and 15, I could feel that, and I just kept pushing it down. For years, even as an adult, I started to hear that little voice being like, "What are you doing? This is not your path." And I just kept ignoring it. Even though I really wasn't a drinker or partier, there's times I still associated going to a concert with drinking, or going, having fun that had to have a drink in my hand. And honestly, I've always been one of those people that can be more myself and dance and be free without alcohol. So I never really understood why I really was attached to the idea of alcohol being the what brought the party. But honestly, we live with this collective, guys. Not everything we are living out and believing is actually ours. The collective consciousness is really powerful. And as we gain in consciousness and awaken, we start to realize how powerful it is, but how powerful we are, and we get to choose to disconnect from that collective if we choose to. So the thing I gave up, I finally quit and gave up, was alcohol. It started with a family visit at Christmas time with all my in-laws, and they love wine, and there was 50 bottles of wine. I kid you not. There was so many bottles of wine for that 5 days we were there, and every single one of them, plus the alcohol bottles, were completely empty by the time we left. And I could not keep up. And every time I drank, my eyes would blow up. I'd get crabby. By the time we left, I was so sick of myself. I was depressed. And my inner voice and my inner self was just hands on the hip and being like, "What are you doing?" And I finally heard it. I finally got so disgusted with ignoring my inner guidance just to follow along with what was happening in front of me, that I gave up and I quit alcohol for what I thought would be a year. And I went through a whole year without having not even a sip. And then it turned into 16 months. And then after 16 months, I started to, have a sip here and there, or I really like tequila. I would have a shot of tequila. And guys, I just kept going with it. So now it's been 3 years. I've pretty much given up alcohol. Maybe I will have 1 cup of wine, 1 cup is a glass cup of wine per month. Or for July 4th, I had a shot of a tequila. But really, that is it. Now I feel like I make the choice from my inner voice being like, yeah, let's do it. It's fun. Instead of some old belief system that I've bought into unconsciously. Now, the cool part, this is where we're diving deep and raising high here. Just by quitting this one thing of like releasing alcohol, I changed a whole systematic pattern in my reality and life and the way I choose. So since I was like 14 or 15, I was aware that alcohol was not my path, that alcohol was not doing me a favor in my life. I was conscious of that, and I chose against that consciousness. That is called anti-consciousness, guys. There's 3 ways we kind of live: consciously, anti-consciously, and unconsciously. Now that unconsciously is like, we haven't awakened yet. We haven't asked the questions yet. Our subconscious is still pretty unexplored. We're unconscious. Ignorance is a little bliss, but there starts to be a stirring eventually into consciousness. And then there's, wow, I'm really conscious. I have intuitive hits. My inner voice is speaking to me. I'm aware of it, yet I'm choosing against its information. That is anti-consciousness. And when I stopped drinking alcohol, a huge wave of awareness came through to let me know how much of my life I've been living in anti-consciousness that has been kind of sabotaging and stunting my life, my evolution, my awakening, and my ascending. So this decision 3 years ago to quit alcohol has exploded my awareness, my awakening, my personal evolution, and the ability to align with my ascended self. So, woo! I mean, who knew that just aligning and listening and choosing for my consciousness that I have, who knew what that could create? Guys, it's not that living a lifestyle of purity and no alcohol and no meat or this or that. It's not like those bullet points that create awareness or awakening. It's the process that you go about choosing them. And it's the process of awakening to choose something different. So just choosing to have the bullet points of no alcohol, no meat, morning practice, just choosing that and kind of grumbling your way through it doesn't create a huge amount for you until you dive deep and raise high with it, until you really get the nectar from what that choice is really creating on a conscious level for yourself. So quitting alcohol, who knew it would just skyrocket my awakening and skyrocket the clarity I have with consciousness and intuition. So I am super grateful that I finally was willing to choose consciously rather than continue to choose anti-conscious. Now, it's very interesting because as I chose this no alcohol, I started to see all the areas that I was choosing anti-consciousness. One specific example was I had a boyfriend, and it was an awful breakup. I sold everything in my house. I was about to get in my car in a few days and drive across country to go live with him. And he calls up 4 days before I go east. And he says, this isn't going to work. And I was like, what? And I was floored and I was like upset, yet my inner being was relieved. Oh my gosh, I knew this all along, that I really never was going east and going to be with this man. What? You know, I knew early on in the relationship, my inner voice was like, this isn't it. This is not it. Someone else is coming. This is not it. And I just kept, just like the voice with the alcohol, just like pushing it down, anti-consciousness. Choosing and living from anti-consciousness creates a lot of suffering and creates a lot of regret. I've noticed. So where could you be living and choosing anti-consciousness, where you could say no more and start living consciously? Now, it's tough. It's tough sometimes hearing that inner voice because it's subtle. It's not egoic. It doesn't have a real agenda. So it's a subtle voice, and it takes some practice and real clarity to hear it. And when we do hear it, then it takes some practice to trust ourselves to choose from there. And choosing consciously doesn't necessarily always bring the aha moment immediately. It may take a little while. It might be a little bit of a journey. So be willing to dive deep with yourself, to raise high. It is worth it. You know, tune in. Are you making choices unconsciously, consciously, or from anti-consciousness? So only you will know if quitting alcohol will help you awaken. And that is something you can tune into. Just sitting still in the morning, asking a question. Does my body want this? And living in 10-second increments with whatever you choose. And so now, after taking a hiatus from all alcohol for like 16 months, now I can really tune into like, hey body, would this be fun for us today? And I can get a yes or no, because the consciousness of the body is sometimes a little different than the consciousness of the soul. And so getting into sacred union with your own ascended self, and then the sacred union with your body, and then kind of being kind of a trilogy together, if you will, to live consciously together and let the body have fun, right? And that's why I had to stop first to see where I was in space, right? Like where my body wanted to play, but where it was willing to commune with my soul and my ascended self, and for the best combination of my awakening journey. Make sure you include in the equation of your conscious decision making your beautiful, vital, amazing body, your vehicle to be on this planet right now. So yes, we're choosing conscious, anti-conscious, or unconscious, and then including your body and your ascended self within the mix of your choices. And so one of the things that I do all the time lately is ask my body, hey body, would this be a contribution today? I hold it up, and if my body moves forward, I'm like, oh, okay, cool. If my body moves back, okay, cool. So going forward means, yes, I want some of that. And going backwards, no, not today. I do this with any the supplements or protein I take, any food that I put in my body. Yeah, and I'm even starting to do it with activities or doingness, right? Like, you know, doing a video or going on a walk, or, you know, I really include my ascended self and my body within all of that. And then there's the mind and that personality part of ourselves. So I feel like when I was really going into unconscious drinking or anti-conscious drinking, it was my mind. I thought it was a good idea. And so sometimes we walk around with these mega minds thinking, oh, these are good ideas. Let's party this way. Let's go this way. Let's go this way. But yet the outcome is always kind of, lackluster. The outcome when we follow our mind is like we're still yearning. There's an emptiness. There's a depression or a numbness or a feeling kind of shut down. And that's because the body and your beingness, your authentic self, weren't included in that decision. And if we make our choices just from the mind, we will always feel, always, that something doesn't feel right. I feel empty. I feel purposeless. And so for many years, I was a mega mind, and I would go into what I thought would be a good choice instead of tuning in and really asking and living from consciousness. So wrapping this up, guys, going deep, asking why. What am I making these decisions from? Consciousness or anti-consciousness? Or am I totally unconscious of why I do things? Is it on autopilot? A lot of times, some of us come home on autopilot just to pour a drink, sit down. That's like the autopilot of how we relax after work. So autopilot is unconsciousness. And consciousness is seeing, oh, yeah, this isn't working for me anymore. And anti-consciousness is choosing it anyway, even though you're aware that it's not working anymore for you. Do you want to live your life consciously from anti-consciousness, or just be total on auto loop and be totally unconscious? So it's just a choice. Each choice can create a different reality for you. And this was a big one for me when I started to realize that I was living a lot of my life from anti-consciousness. And wow, when I was really willing to see that, everything started to change. The things that have changed these past 3 years, the intuition, the level of evolution, and the rate of frequency that I am living from has totally shifted because of this one choice I started to make consciously instead of anti-consciously. What will you choose today? Consciousness, anti-consciousness, or unconsciousness? Just a choice. Remembering our greatness together. What a journey it is. If you have any questions about what I'm talking about today or your own experience with this stuff, please, I'd love to hear it in the comments. And by all means, if you want to join the High Vibe Tribe, please subscribe. Click that subscribe button, make it go red to gray, and be sure you click on the bell so you can get notifications of upcoming material and see where we go next. Beautiful high vibers, have a wonderful, conscious day.